I am sitting in a car with 5 books that I have no intention of reading. It's like middle school English class all over again, but if it took place in a car and if I'd ever gone to public school and had any clue what I was talking about. Gotta sit the seat back up. I don't know if this shot was worth it. Basically what I'm gonna do is read the first chapter of each of these books and see if I can predict what happens in the book, and then read the last chapter, see if anything crazy takes place. You could look at this video in a couple different ways, either as a really creative idea or as an epic prank against the librarians who will be very confused at how I read 5 books in such a short amount of time. Little do they know, they're stupid. I purposely chose books that I probably wouldn't read otherwise, that way I'm not spoiling books that I would like to read. I'm just gonna give you a basic run through of these books and then we'll go from there. First up we have Tandem by Anna Jarzab. Pretty epic name. The main reason I wouldn't ever read this book is because it has a girl on the cover, and this library doesn't have self-checkouts, so you know it's an in-person librarian like checking out for you, and I have street cred to uphold. So it seems like this book has something to do with multi-dimension stuff, multiverse things, potentially interesting. Everything We Never Said by Sloane Harlow. It says love makes you do bad things, like get married and slap comedians in the face, I guess. Based off of the cover alone, you could probably guess why I wouldn't read it. Next up we have Contagion by Terry Terry. That's either a made-up name or a stupid name, or both. I'm just kidding. Just to be clear, I'm joking. I'm just joking. Shay and Kai can't outrun the epidemic. Can they survive it? Probably not. Most things that you're trying to outrun for your life, if it catches up to you, it tends to kill you. So kind of a stupid question. Obviously everyone dies in this book. Stay Dead, something I bet my ex wishes I would do. It has a pretty good tagline on the front that says, they think she's dead. If she wants to live, she'd better stay that way. It's a good looking cover and it seems interesting, but I've read the synopsis or skimmed through it before, and if I remember correctly, it looks too political for me to find it interesting. It seems interesting. And then last we have Goliath by Scott Westerfield, and it is a heavy book, and also I think the 3rd book in a series. It doesn't really look like the type of genre I would be interested in, so I have chosen it for this video. Well, I have a little under an hour for me to film this, so I should get cracking. Cracking those spines. Something I did for the government back in the day. That's also a joke. Okay, so I read the prologue of Tandem. There's more to unpack here than I am willing to unpack, but let's start off with maybe the most important thing. Let me read you how the book starts. It says, when I was a sophomore in high school, I enrolled in a Western philosophy class to fulfill a graduation requirement. That's not the important part. This next part is, on the first day of the semester, my teacher, Mr. Early, I'm just gonna say what all of you guys are thinking about that name. It's a silly name. It's kind of a goofy name. Here's my prediction. Mr. Early, that is not his real name. That is about as made up as Terry Terry. Well, I guess it is made up. Like it's actually made up for a book. Anyway, then it cuts from like this first person stuff to this girl in a castle, and I'm not getting into all of that. There's like political stuff with the king, and just I don't care to explain any of it. But she writes this note as an apology to her friend Thomas. Prediction about her friend Thomas. My guess is that the two of them like each other because, of course, especially because she's like set up to marry this guy from another kingdom. I don't know, political stuff I don't care about. But she writes this like note to Thomas because she has to leave the castle at midnight or something to do something, and this is what the note says. I'm sorry, but I can't. I wish I was better, but I'm not. I'm keeping that second line in mind for if I ever need to make an apology video in the future. And then the prologue ends up switching to Thomas, who has gone to an alternate reality, finds his alternate self, and then makes his alternate self go to where Thomas came from, and multiversal things. One sentence that stood out to me from this section: he had entered this universe through a door that wasn't there, which kind of reminds me about how I'm filming this video with a phone that doesn't exist. Anyway, there's some just info dumping stuff, and I'm not gonna explain it all or take really any of it into account. I glanced at the last chapter just to see how long it is, and it's fairly short, which makes me think it's gonna basically be an epilogue, like after a climax of like some cliffhanger thing, because this is, I think, yeah, this is the first book in a trilogy, so I'm gonna go ahead and read that. So I just finished the final chapter, and I'm already realizing how much I don't enjoy this. Basically, it seems like the character from the first person section of the prologue is the alternate version of the girl in the castle, whose name is Juliana, and it basically just poses some questions about things. It's like, hey, this thing that happened earlier in the book, I wonder what will happen now. Basically just setting it up for the next book. I don't know, it talked about things I don't really care about because I haven't read the whole book. I get the feeling, because it ends with our main character, whose name I think is Sasha, her and Grant, who is Thomas's alternate, and I kind of wonder if, at least in future books, there ends up being like a love triangle between Sasha, Grant, and Thomas, which would be kind of weird, because Grant and Thomas are like the same person. Doesn't matter, probably not going to read the whole series. So one thing I wanted to point out from the chapter, well, really not the chapter, just the end of the book. The very end of the book here says, "Not the end, only the beginning," which is a pretty original line that I might have to steal for myself if I ever write a book. I only have like less than half an hour left to film this video, so next I'm going to move on to Contagion, because it seems to have pretty short prologue and final chapter, so... Okay, so Contagion starts off in the year 1993 in Desertron, Texas, which sounds more made up than Terry or Mr. Early. I see a pattern emerging, and it is scary. Basically, it seems like an explosion happens at this lab, and a contagion releases, and it gives us these two sentences that sound like one of those bad two-sentence horror stories. It finds us. There is pain. Our POV character, at least for the prologue, his colleagues end up dying. So a pretty good start for my prediction for, everyone dying. Unfortunately, our POV character here does survive, but who knows? He could die later on. My guess, because this is 1993 and it seems like this guy is an adult scientist and this is a teen series, is that this is not the main character of the book, and this guy will probably come into play later in the book, maybe as like a reveal at the end, introduced to the actual main characters. Maybe he shows up later in the series. I don't know. I guess I'll take a look at the final chapter. Okay, so after reading the final chapter, this actually seems like a book that I would like to read. Maybe I will read the whole book sometime and then read the whole trilogy or something. I will say there are still people alive at the end of the book, which makes sense. There's 2 more books, so plenty of time for everyone to just get annihilated. There's somebody mentioned named Dr. One. Just the number 1. I wonder if that's the guy from the beginning of the book. I don't know. Also, because I'm running out of time, and also just don't feel like doing this anymore, I'm just going to read the first chapter of the rest of the books and not the final chapter. And you could look at this decision a couple different ways. One, me being lame and lying to you at the beginning of this video. Or 2, an epic prank on you guys, who thought I was a man of my word, but little do you guys know, you're stupid. That was also a joke. You guys aren't stupid. Not all of you, at least. I have 5 minutes left. So here's the deal. I'm not going to be doing those, the other 2 books I have left, but I read the first chapter of this. A lot of information given in the first chapter. Once again, you can chill on the information and maybe slip it in throughout the book. But basically, the main character, both of her parents are senators, except for one of them, who's dead. And I guess her mom didn't become a senator until after her dad died. I guess she, replaced her dad. I don't know, and I don't really care. It kind of sets up this main character as a troubled youth. She's like smoking in school and is just set up as kind of a little bit of just a delinquent. And so she probably deserves every bad thing that happens to her in this book. Yeah, so I'm not going to read the final chapter. I'll never know what happens. I think the moral of the story is choose to do clever video ideas when you have the time to execute them and you don't feel rushed and you can think a bit more. That's a lesson for all the people. Anyway, I'm gonna go return all these books because I'm still at the library. Hi, Mom and Dad. Thanks for watching. See ya.